In Hebrew,
Beginning, God made.
the heavens and the earth. Okay, notice in this one that we're using that at number 1, if you look over to your left, there's an aleph. See that aleph right there? It's kind of out there alone, bolden. That's the number. Okay, so where we have number 1, they have the letter aleph. Where we have number 2, they have the letter bait. So they're doing it like the English Bible, in that they now have these verses broken up, but they have the Hebrew letters being used as numbers rather than numbers. So I didn't want you to get mixed up and think that that was the word in Genesis 1. Okay, so we looked at Genesis 1:1 last week, so let's go ahead and do it again, and then maybe we'll do another verse. Okay, what letter does it begin with? Bait. See that bait there with the dot in the middle of it and the dots below it? Okay, and those dots below, if I look at all of the dots in there, okay, let's just look at the dots. With all of the dots in there, there's one dot that is not a vowel. That's the dot in the middle of the letter bait. And that lets you know that it's pa and not va. If it did not have a dot in the middle of it, then it would be va. Okay, interesting, right? Dagesh. Dagesh. It's a dagesh. All right? Now, the vowels, you have those 2 dots under. That makes a, ba, okay? Then the next 2 dots make a. So you have a. And then you have, a dot over that sheen, the thing that looks a little bit like a W. It has a dot over it. That lets you know, because it's on the right, all right, that lets you know it's sh. If it were on the left, then it would be s. Okay? And then you have the dot under the sh and the yod. See the yod in between the sheen and the tav, they go together and they make the vowel sound e. Okay? Putting it all together, you have ba re sheet. Barashit. Everybody see that? Kind of reading along with me? Okay, great. That means you're getting it. Okay, then the next word begins again with another bait with a dot in it, so it's ba. Okay, and then you have a resh and an aleph. And the vowels underneath it are both ah, right? Ah and ah. Okay, put that all together and you have bara. Bara. Okay, put those both together and you have Bereshit bara. Everybody reading that? Kind of reading that with me there? Okay, the next word you're going to begin to recognize without even needing to read it. Works that way in English as well, right? Okay, so that next word has all those dots under there. Why? I don't know, but it's eh. That's Elohim. Elohim. Where do you get the O in Elohim? Where's the O vowel? It's the dot above, or almost at the top of the second letter, which is a lamed. Okay, so it's Elohim. Elohim. Okay, the next one is easy. Et. It's aleph tav with the eh noise under it. So it's et. Okay. Then you have hey, Hin, Mem, Yod, Mem. Okay, and the vowels are going to be ah, E. Okay, E. See those? You have the dash, and then the thing that looks like a T, and then you have a dash, and then you have a dot. See all those? So it's E. Put them together, and you have ha, sha, mayim. Hashamayim. Hashamayim. Okay? Next word, you have a vav and an aleph and a tav. Okay? So remember, when you have the vav at the beginning of a word, it's and. Okay? It's and. So this is va-8. Okay? But 8 is not a word. Right? The other aleph tav up there is never translated as a word. Okay? So what is it? Well, it's number one, it marks where a definite object of a verb is in a sentence. But every definite object of every verb in the Hebrew Bible is not marked with an aleph tav. So that's, curious. Why isn't it there everywhere? And the idea is that it's more than a grammar mark. It's a mark of God, of Yeshua, in that he is the beginning and the end, or the A and the Z, or the Aleph and the Tav. In my office, I have a Bible, Dave has one as well, that has all of those. It has it in English. It's basically a King James Bible, but wherever the Aleph Tav is, he sticks it in there. So you can read it and you can find where all those Aleph Tavs are. And that Bible that we have has all of the books that were in any version of the Bible ever. Okay, so it has Jubilees, it has Jasher, it has Maccabees, it has all of those books that aren't in your English Bibles. It's about that thick, like that, and it can be definitely used as a weapon. So if anybody messes with you and you have that Bible on you, you can even buy a little case with a zipper that goes around it and a handle and walk around with it. Looks like you have a purse, but it'd be like lead. Bam! If you needed to use it. God's word will be my protection. Bam! Sorry. All right, last word down there. Anybody want to read it without my going over it? Haaretz. Actually, haaretz. Haaretz. Okay, now, those of you that are brave enough, let's go back to the beginning. Let's all read it out loud, slowly, together. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim va'et haaretz. Okay, it sounds like somebody ate something, but that's not what it means. Okay, now if you want to listen, I'll do the next one, and you can follow along, and then we'll work on it next week. No, not next week, the week after next, because we're not going to meet next week. Okay, it goes like this. V'haaretz hayata tohu vabohu v'hoshek al pnei tehom v'ruach Elohim marafet al pnei hamayim. So, now the earth was unformed and void, darkness was on the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God. Did you hear that in there when I read it? The Spirit of God, Ruach Elohim, That Spirit of God hovered over the face of the waters. Did you notice anything else when you heard it other than my voice? Did you notice a rhyme in there anywhere? Yeah. It's meant to be that way. It's a rhyme in Hebrew. Genesis 1 is not only narrative, it's a poem in Hebrew, but it's not in English. Because in English, we just did it word for word. There's a lot of places in the Hebrew Bible that are poetic, but you don't know it unless you read it in Hebrew. So, and sometimes things that are poetic have meaning that goes beyond the literal meaning. So, I just bring that up. Okay, let's put that away. We'll do more of that when we meet again. By the way, as a reminder, next week is what? Passover. Now, the literal date of it is either Tuesday or Wednesday. Well, why don't I know which one? Well, because I don't. Okay? And there are people that are arguing that it's Wednesday, and there are people that are arguing that it's Tuesday, and it's like being around a bunch of rabbis, because that's what we are. And the bottom line is, whichever of those days works, ask the Lord, which day would you like me to remember this, and do it on that day. All right, now I will have Friday night some little booklets if anybody would like to do it in the evening in your home, maybe have a meal and maybe do your little own family program. I have one. It takes about an hour or less to do it. If you want to do it, they'll be available Friday night. Now, otherwise, we meet as a congregation a week from Saturday at 5. You're going to be here early, okay? But we're beginning right then at 5. Has everybody been to one of those? You guys have all been to one, right? Okay, so you know how it is and how amazing it is. 10 or 11 of them. Yeah, right on. Okay, now, in light of all that, next week, on Wednesday, no meeting, okay? Get with whoever you want to get with and have a meal or whatever you want to do, but we're not meeting. Now, you might ask, well, do I have to do it on Tuesday or Wednesday? Can I just do it on Saturday? And the answer is yes, of course. Yes, you can do it. And remember, this is my philosophy. If you're moving in the right direction, all good. You may not have it all right. I don't have it all right. But at least you know we're moving in the right direction. We're reading the things that are in the Bible, and we're learning how to do them. We're learning how to bring a new, because really what I believe we're in right now is we're in maybe not the beginning, but almost the beginning of a new reformation. Just like the one that happened with Martin Luther, okay? Only that one ended, but it didn't. Okay? And I have a really neat movie about, if I have a really neat movie about that, if anybody wants to borrow it. It's something about the lion. Let the Lion Roar is the name of it, and it's a movie about relearning what's in the Bible from more of a Jewish Hebrew background. And just a second, I don't think I brought them. I think I left them on my desk. I have a couple of books that I'm giving away because I have doubles. Okay, one that's up there is yeah. You have. I have two extra. Okay. Okay. Sir, have you read any of it? Do you like it?
I ordered two.
You like it, huh?
Oh, it needs to be in the library for sure.
Yeah, it needs to be in the library. And the other one, I don't remember. I'll go get them when we're done tonight. Show you what they are. If you wouldn't mind, that'd be great. Do you have a key to my office? Okay, it's that one right there. They're on my desk on the left. There are 2 of them. Books. Thanks. Okay, well, that's it. You guys have a great evening. Oh, wait. We haven't looked at the notes. Now, it's normal when we get near these appointed days, it's normal that you're not going to have a normal reading. Okay? We get out of the normal Leviticus, which is what we're beginning tonight, and you have a reading that has things about whatever day it is that you're doing, okay? And that's what happens next week. So we won't meet again here until a week from next Wednesday, okay? Everybody online, I hope you got that. I'll do it again at the end, say it again at the end. And there will be no Freedom Night next week because we're just shutting it down for the holiday.
So will we have church on Friday?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes, we will. Friday will be normal-ish. Although the next couple weeks I'm going to be focusing on the day, on holiday. I think this Friday we're going to look at the just miracles that happened during Passover. There's enough of them that one of them would make you go, wow. But all of them that there were, it's amazing, okay? And how everything that happened on the mountain lines up with everything that happened during Yeshua's death and resurrection. Just lines up like you know that they go together. So that's what I'm going to do this week. Okay, so tonight we have 2 readings to go over, okay? The last of Exodus, which is basically, if you read it, it's like reading an account of all the money and everything that they used in order to build the tabernacle. And then they have the erection of the tabernacle when they went ahead and set it up, all right? And in Exodus 39, it says the people of Israel did all the work just as Adonai had ordered Moses. Moses saw all the work, and there it was. They had done it exactly as Adonai had ordered. They had done it, and Moshe blessed them. Okay? Now, knowing what you know about Israel and the next 1,000 years after this event, the fact that it is written exactly as Adonai had ordered, they had done it, is a miracle. Right? Okay? Now, here's the game. Where else have we heard those words in the Bible up to where we've been? And I have the answers down here. Noah, because Noah did all that Adonai ordered him to do. That's in Genesis 7. And Abraham. So Abram went as Adonai had said to him or ordered him to do. All right? I wish it were more often that you would read in the Bible, they did everything exactly as God told them to do it. Of course, then the Bible might not be as long as it is, because you wouldn't have all the examples of people messing up like we do, okay? All right, the fact that in chapter 40, you read about when it says on the first day of the first month of the second year, the tabernacle was set up. And that word means, literally means kum, means arise, or risen, or raised up, or stand up, or lifted up. Okay, and the idea, I believe, is that the tabernacle wasn't only set up like you erect a tent when you're in the woods, all right, but it was raised up as an offering. Okay, because this is what God wanted us to do, and we did it, and here it is. And remember, why was it built? Other than God commanded it. You got the right ones. Oh, you don't have the right. That one, yeah, this one is to give away. That one I just got today.
Okay.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I wondered why you were giving it away.
And I put one in Art's box. There may be one more, or somebody may have grabbed it.
Okay, I think so, because that's the only two that were on there.
Would anyone like that one? It has no notes in it, unlike my other books. Okay, there you go. You are the winners. Woo! Ha ha. That's about one of the ancient documents that were found in the Dead Sea documents. There was a copper scroll, and this is all about that. So, gonna find out what that's all about. That'll be neat. I'll let you know. If it's any good, we'll order more. Okay, here we go. On the what we read was on the first day of the first month of the second year. Second year from when? From when they left Egypt. Remember, when they left Egypt, God's words were, "This is the new beginning." Okay? Now, isn't that interesting? Because when Yeshua died and rose again, wasn't that a new beginning? Didn't Paul write, "You are new creations"? Okay? So, the Bible is all about patterns that happen over and over and over again. And it's brilliant the way that it happens, okay? And it's that way with Passover and all of these events. By the way, that as well tells us that things that we read in Isaiah and Jeremiah and Daniel, we often look for what is the fulfillment of those prophecies, right? There may be more than one. Okay? Because they happen over and over. This is something we learned from Skip Moen. It's like you're riding a bike and you stick a mark or chalk on your wheel, and whenever the wheel hits the road, you make a mark. Okay, and then you go down the road a little bit more and it makes another mark. It's another fulfillment. An example of that is the prophecies in Isaiah. In the days of Isaiah, a lot of those words that we attribute to what happened with Yeshua, in their day, they believed it was King Hezekiah. Okay, so when you read that, unto us a son is born, a child is given, that was, in their day, Hezekiah, who was a good, righteous, messianic figure in Israel. Okay, so it happened then, but that doesn't mean that's the end of it, because then it happened again with Yeshua. So, that's normal with Bible things, okay? Now, the beginning of a new month, there's no word month in Bible Hebrew. What there is moon. Okay, so you don't have a new month, you have a new moon. When you have a new month, you have the beginning. When you have a new moon, you have the beginning of a new month, because they mark their months by the moon, unlike the way that we do ours. The beginning, or the new moon, is known as the Rosh Chodesh. All right? Rosh, anybody know what that word means? Same thing as the letter Resh. Okay, so it means head, and Chodesh means renewed. So it literally means the head renewed. All right. Now, that's a little bit fascinating because the word that Jeremiah uses in his words about the new covenant is that word, Chodesh. But Chodesh doesn't mean new as in never existed. Chodesh means renewed. So that means it would be right for you to think of the new covenant as the renewed covenant, or another meaning of the word is repaired covenant. Because in a way, that's what God did. If you look in the book of Hebrews, Hebrews talks about the covenant that was made with Moses didn't work. Why? Why didn't it work? Disobedience, because the people didn't keep their end of it. Okay? So now Jeremiah, he comes along and he goes, well, you know what? God's going to fix that. All right? And how's he going to do that? He's going to put his Torah in you. Okay? And Ezekiel says he's going to cause you to walk in his ways. And has he done that with us? I think he is doing that with us. I don't just, there's a desire in me to walk in his ways. There's a desire in me to know the holidays and do them. I don't do them because I'm like, oh, I got to do those holidays and Christmas and Easter, whatever. No, it's not like that at all. It's like there's a desire to do it. There's a desire in me to rest on Saturday. Can I make it till Saturday? Anyway. All right. So that's that, and that's that word. Okay. Now, in the end here, near the end of this reading, you have in verses 34 and following, then the cloud covered the tent of meeting, and the glory of Adonai filled the tabernacle. Moses was unable to enter the tent of meeting because the cloud remained on it, and the glory of Adonai filled the tabernacle. Whenever the cloud was taken up from over the tabernacle, the people of Israel continued with all of their travels. But if it was not taken up, they did not travel onward until I lost my place, until the day when it was taken up. The cloud of Adonai was above the tabernacle during the day, and the fire was in the cloud at night, so that all the house of Israel could see it throughout all their travels. So that means 40 years. They have the cloud during the day and the fire at night over the tabernacle, and still they grumbled. It's fascinating. They had the miraculous, holy presence of God that many people today long for, and it made no difference. That's amazing, isn't it? Okay? Now, the word glory, I have the word cloud as well, but the word glory is kabod or kabod, and it is from the word that means to be heavy and weighty. That's what it means. I used to wonder what that word meant. Glory, does that mean like beauty? Well, beauty can be weighty and heavy. It means something that is very, very important. That's the idea of weighty. Okay, now, later on in the Bible, there's the story when Shlomo is bringing in the ark and dedicating his temple. And you read in Chronicles and in Kings that the priests were unable to stand because of the weight of the glory of the Lord. So they felt they were down because of the glory of the Lord. There you have it. Now, this glory or glory cloud, as you might look at it, happened other times in Scripture, including, and here we go again with the patterns, including on the Mount of Transfiguration. Remember, there was a cloud and a voice. It happened at Yeshua's ascension when he went up into the heavens. There was a cloud that carried him up, and it will happen again at his coming. Can you think of when else it happened, other than what we already mentioned where Solomon was in the temple? When else was there like a glory cloud and something happened that was miraculous? Was there anybody else that ascended into heaven? Elijah. Okay.
Moses, they were talking trash about Moses. The cloud just ran into him.
Yes, you're right. No, you got it. And that was the, I believe that was the cloud that was there, that was with them. And that means it would have moved a little maybe. Kind of like, all right, I'm coming over there where you are. Yeah. What?
The disease they both had.
Oh, Sa'arat. Yep. Okay, now we're going to move into the next reading, which is the beginning of the book of Leviticus. There are many people that look at the book of Leviticus and they never read it, because they read in the beginning of it and they're like, if this is all it is, if this is what this book is, I'm not going to make it through it. And there's a lot of different reasons. There's a lot of blood in it, and dip your hand in the blood and your thumb in the blood and then take the blood, but without the blood, there's no life, because the life is in the blood. And I know this from direct experience, and a lot of you might. When I went and I gave blood, a couple of months, 3 months ago, something like that, I gave blood, and I had not done that in many years, and I did not realize that you're supposed to eat, or you're supposed to eat a meal, and that you're not supposed to go on a 4-mile run, which I had done. I ran 4 miles. I got done. I drank a bunch of water, and I went in and opened up my arm, and here we go, and man, I can do this, and squeeze. Look at how fast that's filling up. Yes, fill. I said, are we nearly done? She's like, yeah, we're done. Pulled it out, and it was like life just went, and I was out. I mean, I just was like, oh, you have that feeling. And when it was all over and I came back to life, in my mind, it was only like a second, maybe, just like, yeah. And then my eyes opened up and I was like, wow, that was interesting. And these people are all around me and they're like, are you all right? We need to take your blood pressure. Your blood pressure is almost at 0. You're beep, beep, well, siren, and I'm like, I'm all right, guys. Do you want something to eat? I said, yes. Do you have anything organic? Because I know they had a bunch of junk over there. I don't need to eat Twinkie. I need something. And she goes, yes, we have a bag of organic apples. I said, yeah, I'll eat that. And I was all right. But in that moment, it hit me that when the animals are slaughtered, okay, the way that they do it is, and I don't mean to be gross, it's just the way it is whoosh, right there, and they bleed out. And it doesn't take long for them to bleed out. And when they bleed out, it doesn't hurt. Okay? It's a very humane way of dealing with an animal, right? Other than some of the other ways that we've used over the millennium. But life is in the blood, right? It really is. That's literal. Okay? So there's a lot about blood in Leviticus. Some people think that Leviticus is boring. Oops, I spelled the word boring, B-R-I-N-G, bring. Leviticus is boring only if you're not aware of what it's about and why it matters, okay? And one of the biggest tellers of me, if you look in your notes on 4, all right, down almost at the bottom, because it begins, Leviticus begins, Adonai called to Moses, spoke to him from the tent of meeting, said, speak to the people of Israel and say to them, when any of you brings an offering to Adonai, okay? Offering is what we normally think of when we think of sacrifices. A sacrifice, an offering. But the way that we think of sacrifice in the modern U.S. is not the way that they thought of sacrifice, nor God thought of sacrifice. First of all, the word offering is korban, and it means drawing near. So that means all of these offerings, there are 5 of them that are main offerings or sacrifices to God, are ways that God gave Israel so they could draw near to him. And it had to do with their own actions and their own hearts as much as it had to do with God saying, this is the only way you guys are going to get near me. It was to get near him, they had to be clean in their hearts and in their minds. And in order to get him that way, he provided these ways of offering. So we're going to look at those, all right? Now, it's very interesting that the end of Exodus ends with Moses not being able to draw near. Right? Because it said he couldn't go in. Leviticus is the answer to the end of Exodus. Because now Leviticus is going to give you the way that God gives you to draw near, so that Moses and everybody else will be able to draw near to God. Now, the world, when it thinks of sacrifices, it usually thinks of them in terms of a couple of different ideas. Did I write these down? I'm not really going in order. I'm kind of going out of my brain here, but really 2 different things, okay? One is a bribe, all right? If I do A, then I will be bribing God or paying off God so that he's going to have to do B. If I do A, then God's got to do B. Okay? Well, there may be a little bit of truth in that. All right? But that really isn't the right spirit, is it? All right? And that usually is not honored by God. Okay? So, but the second thing, the idea of sacrifices had in the world, and doggone it if they don't have it now, today, is it's an appeasement. It was a way to make God not mad anymore. Remove his anger. Okay? So you have that idea brought into theology, in a Christian theology, and what you wind up with is the reason that Jesus died was so that God would be angry at Jesus rather than being angry at us. That's not right. Okay? That's not why Yeshua died. He died as an offering, as a sin offering. He was lifted it up as an offering, and he offered his own life, all right, in order that we might be able to draw near. Okay? It wasn't about God's anger. It wasn't about him being mad at us or at you. Okay? We'll look at that more as we get through Leviticus, okay? Now, when we use the world's way of looking at what sacrifices are, then we come up with ideas like, well, the God of the Old Testament is a mean, nasty, vengeful, bloodthirsty old man in heaven with a big rod, right? But that's not the God that we know. And we know the God in Genesis is the God in Revelation. He's no different. He's not a different God. Okay, so what is up with that? Well, we'll learn a little bit of that. Now, in Deuteronomy, skipping ahead, in Deuteronomy, Moses warns Israel, when you get into the land, all right, and the people of the land have been destroyed ahead of you, don't be trapped into following them, so that you inquire after their gods and ask, how did these nations serve their gods? I want to do the same. You must not do this to Adonai your God, for they have done to their gods all the abominations that Adonai hates. They even burn up their sons and daughters in the fire for their gods. Has there ever been people that worshiped God according to the way that they worshiped other gods? Can you think of that ever happening? The golden calf, perfect example. Okay, their words were, "This is your Elohim that brought you out of the land of Egypt." Right? So, what was that? Kathy, you had one?
Well, I was going to say Easter and Christmas and everything.
Well, there's truth in that. Okay, the way they originated was when the Roman leaders, rather than carrying over the holy days that were already in the Bible, that God's people were already doing, like Paul and Peter and Jesus and all of them, they were already doing those holy days. Rather than do those, they took the days that they already worshiped their gods on and they Christianized them. They gave them different names, they gave them a different God, and carried over not all of the traditions, but some of the traditions. Now, some people thought that was brilliant. Okay? Some people today think that's brilliant, because the idea is that God then takes over all of those ancient religions and brings them into his own way. Okay, the only problem with that is Deuteronomy 12, 30 and 31 that I just read, where God told the people of Israel, don't do that. So what I'm getting at is we're no different than the people of Israel. When we rail on the people of Israel, and gosh, how could you guys have the cloud and the fire and yet you don't obey God? And I'm like, well, it's easy to know how they could do that. They're just like us. We're just like them. All right? So this is where we bow down and we thank God for his mercy and his great patience with us. That's why I say, hey, you're moving in the right direction. You're doing good. Might not hit the nail on the head, and we're not going to go into what to do about Christmas and Easter, because that's a whole nother can of worms. All right? And everybody does something different, and I'm all right with that, because we are not a cult group. I am not your cult leader. Okay? You do what you believe the Lord is leading you to do, and your life is not my life. Your reasons, your relationships are not my relationships. You have different relationships. Maybe you have relationships with family members wherein going a little extreme on the holiday list might cut those relationships off, and God might not want you to do that. So think about that. Okay, moving on. Offerings, drawing near, okay? Let's look at your notes 5, okay? We're going to go over these offerings, learn a little bit about the words for them, what they're about, what they mean, and how they relate to things in the New Testament and even our lives, okay? Okay, the number one offering is the burnt offering, otherwise known as the olah, from the Hebrew word Allah. Allah means lift up or be lifted up. Olah means go up. Okay, it says if his offering is a burnt offering from the herd, he must offer a male without defect. Bring it to the entrance of the tent of meeting so that it can be accepted by Adonai. Now, I want to let you know that I am not an expert at all of these offerings. I haven't spent years digging into these offerings, but I know there are those that are experts or were experts. One of them is Brad Scott. Okay, he's in heaven now. He's not alive on earth anymore, but you can visit his readings and teachings at wildbranch.org. Wildbranch.org. Brad was right there about 6 years ago or something like that. Stands right here on me. Okay, so we were buddies, saw eye to eye on a lot of different things. And he had brain cancer, and he didn't make it. So, yeah, it was rough. He had a name for it. He named it. The tumor in his brain, he named it the pest. That's what he called it, the pest. But anyway, he has a lot of teachings on the tabernacle and the worship in the tabernacle. Okay, but we're going to go over it just to get an idea of it. Okay, the olah offering, the burnt offering, could be cattle or sheep, or if you didn't have enough money, a dove or a pigeon would do. Okay, but it had to be something that was without defect or blemish. It had to be something, in other words, something good, something decent, not just, oh, there's that bird, and that bird can't walk, we're going to get rid of it anyway. Let's offer that up to God, right? So God is not Goodwill or Salvation Army, where you just kind of give your junk. No, you got to give your best. That's the idea. Okay, now in this offering, the whole animal is burnt up. And it's a valuable animal. Just burn it up. What a waste. Right? What a waste of an animal. Why, that animal might be used and slaughtered and cut up and feed God knows how many poor people. But this offering was just whoosh, used up like that. Well, does that remind you of any other words in the Bible? Like maybe when the disciples, Judas, okay, were like, how could you let that woman dump out all that expensive oil on your feet when the oil, the money, could have been used and given to the poor? And what were Yeshua's words? She's done a good work. She's done a mitzvah. Okay, and it won't be forgotten anywhere. He was about to be offered up. Okay, so this animal had to be something that was very good and very valuable, and we ought to think of it as a gift of love, not something that was wasteful, but a gift of love. James.
So I'm confused. I thought it wasn't burnt up, as you said, and that the practice was the fat caps and the organs were burnt up.
That's another offering.
The rest of it was given to the people.
That's another offering. This one, I believe, look it up, but this one, I believe, is all burned up. All of it. Burn it up, and the ashes are dumped out the gate on the ash heap. Okay? The bottom line of this is it asks, are you committed all the way to Yehovah? So that everything that you own belongs to Him. Right? And everything that you are belongs to Him. Kind of what that's about. Are you reading jokes in my errors that I have made? Okay, next is the grain offering, otherwise known as the mincha. The mincha. Okay, anyone who brings a grain offering to Adonai is to make his offering of fine flour. He is to pour olive oil on it and put frankincense on it. Oh, it's another gift. But this gift doesn't have anything to do with blood. All right, this gift, and it doesn't have, unlike the Olah offering, all right, this is sometimes known as the meal offering. It was of fine flour or unleavened bread, goods anointed with oil and frankincense. A handful of the offering was burned up on the altar. The rest was left for the priests to eat. Isn't that neat? One of the offerings, one of the sacrifices was given of your grain so that the priests would have bread to eat. Now, in the works of the rabbis, the way that Jews view this as a meal with God. Sharing a meal with Yehovah. The bread was considered the bread of life, which Yeshua is the bread of life, right? The bread was to be unleavened. Yeshua was unleavened. That means he was without sin. Okay? The offering was anointed with oil. Yeshua was the anointed one, the Mashiach. It had to have frankincense on it. Frankincense was one of the gifts that they brought Yeshua, the baby. Okay? And this offering was to be seasoned with salt, right? And in the ancient world, they had covenants. A lot of them were related to whatever you had to give. Okay, some covenants were blood covenants. Some covenants were salt covenants. Salt was very valuable. It was like money. Okay, you walked around with a pouch of it. And when somebody made a covenant like this, they would take a little bit of their salt and the others, and they would mix them together and then put them back in their bag, which was symbolic that you would never be able to undo that. Okay? Your valuables, so that's known as a friendship covenant in the ancient days. Okay? So that means you could look at this offering, this bread or grain offering, as a way to be friends with Yehovah and Yeshua. Friendship with God. He's giving them a way to be friends. Guys, let's sit down and break bread together. Okay? Okay, the next one is the shalom offering. Sounds like another word, right? Shalom. Basically, it's the same word in a different form, okay? And this offering is known in English as the peace offering, okay? Shalom, all right? Which means whole and complete and made right and all of that. Okay? Now, if he offers before Adonai an animal, then no matter whether it is a male or female, with this one it didn't matter, it could be either, it must be without blemish or without defect. In other words, this one's not junk either. Okay? This offering was the only one eaten by the individual who offered it and the priests. Okay? So it really was like a meal, sitting down and having a meal together. And it was meant in order to celebrate the covenant of relationship that you have with Yehovah, with God. Robert Alter, whose Bible I have been using in some of our notes, his Bible and his words is one we were looking at earlier today, he calls this a communion offering. And normally there was wine that went along with it when they sat down and ate. Isn't that interesting? Okay. In Judaism, Passover is one of these. It's considered a shalom offering because there is a meal, and at the meal you are celebrating a covenant, so we have the whole picture of the Last Supper and Yeshua and the bread and the wine and all of that is together. Okay? For us, this offering is a continual invitation for us to renew our covenant commitment with Yehovah. It's an invitation to renew our wedding vows to Yehovah and thank Him for His shalom. That means His peace, His provision, His protection, and His ongoing presence. Okay? If you ever read that book that Kat has there, and the other Kat now has, Kathy, that book is all about the wedding, and it's just beautiful. It really is. Just draws you right in to realize what happened and what happens in the way we read the Old Testament. Sometimes is the God that we have an image of in our mind, it's not the reality. That's not the way it was. It's part of it has to do with moving it into English and realizing that God has always been in pursuit of relationship with us, with all that He is. That's what He wants. He goes after it and after it and after it, and He never gives up. That's why even when He kicked Israel out, remember, and exiled Judah, and you read, and He's like, let me see, I'm going to put this in colloquial English. He's like, dang it, I'm done with you. It's over. You're out of here. We're done. I'm not even going to look your direction anymore. As a matter of fact, this is written in the book of Hosea. As a matter of fact, I got a new name for y'all. Not my people. How you like that? Okay? So that's going on, if you will, in the emotions of God. Why? Because He's heartbroken over this. But then, almost the next breath, He goes, but I'm not giving up. There will be a day where those that I have said are not my people, you are going to be my people, because I am going to take you back. There is a way. I have made a way, and I am going to take you back. And that's Yeshua, right? He's the way that He took them back and takes us back. Okay, now the fourth offering and the fifth offering are the ones that we normally think of as Christians as the sacrifices of Leviticus. Okay, that's the hot offering, the sin offering, and then the guilt offering, the Hashem offering. Okay. The sin offering, by the way, the ancient pictograph letters to that word for that offering are fence, surround, leader, covenant. Pretty neat. Put those together and you can make them into a sentence like the fence around the great leader's covenant. Okay? This offering was all about repairing a relationship that had been broken. That's all it was. It was God's way to bring restoration to those who had botched it, which was everybody, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. However, there's this word in there that I wish wasn't in there, but it is. It says, tell the people of Israel, if anyone sins inadvertently against any of the mitzvot of Adonai, concerning things which should not be done, okay? And by the way, these are going to be also things that should be done but aren't done, okay? But the idea behind this, even though this is a mandatory offering that had to be made, why? Why was it mandatory? For it was needed, for all have sinned. All right? But these are sins that you didn't mean. These are the ones that you did either on accident or you didn't even know you were doing it. Okay? Then the idea is when you find out, when it's revealed, when you're like, oh no, okay, this is the way you deal with it. This is the way you fix it, right? By bringing this sin offering. Okay? Now, something about this offering that made it unique from the others, all right? Number one, it was for the specific sins of individual or community. Have any of the other offerings that we've read about been for sins? No. They're all just, I want to draw near. I want to get near. All right. Well, here's a way you can do it. All right. Secondly, it was for known sins. When you're aware, when awareness hits you, this is not bad, this is good, because then you can deal with it. Same thing we learn around here, right? Find out that, fear and anxiety are sins. Hallelujah. Because what does that mean? I can do something about it. God has already done something about it, right? Okay, number 3, it's only for inadvertent or unintentional sins. This is not about rebellion. Okay? And 4, part of it is burned on the altar. The kidneys and the liver and the fat. That's connected to the kidneys and the liver, which is also kind of interesting. Kidneys and the liver. So why? Why kidneys and the liver? Well, the liver is the body's filter, all right, as are kidneys also. But the word for liver in Hebrew is kabed. We heard another word just like that a few minutes ago. Glory. Kabod. The word for liver is kabed. God's glory has a filter, the liver. I don't know, that may be pushing it a little bit. But something very, very interesting about the liver and the kidneys is they were believed to be all connected in with your heart and your inner being. Sometimes when you read in English, my inner being, if you look up the word, it's my kidneys. Sometimes when you look up, one of the things they used to do in some of the other ancient religions was if they had an animal and they offered it or sacrificed it, they'd remove the liver, and then they'd like put the liver under glass or in a dish, and they would go divine using that liver because they thought the liver would give them an answer. Okay, so kind of weird, but that's what God told them to do. Separate those items. Okay, those are the items that I want you to burn up. What happens with the rest of it? Number 5, all that was left was to be taken outside the camp and burned. Why all of these actions of doing it like this and doing it like that? Why would you remove it then and have to take it all the way out there to burn it? Well, 2 reasons. One, Yeshua will die all the way out there, right? Okay? But another reason is that God wants you to know when He removes it, He removes it. Okay? When He's done with this and you have done what you need to do, whatever that is, to make it right, it's right, and God removes, like David wrote, your sin as far as the east is from the west. Takes it out there and burns it. Same thing with the Yom Kippur offering that we're going to read about later. Okay, because in addition to these that we're reading about, the 5 main ones that happened like every week, some of them every day. The burnt off, the skin offering was twice a day offered. So you have these things that are offered every day, but then you're going to have some other ones. And the amazing thing is, people ask, which one was Yeshua? What's the answer? All of them. Okay? Every one of them points to Him. Okay, so the way that we access this offering is 1 John 1:8. Okay, if we acknowledge or confess our sins, then, since He is trustworthy and just, He will forgive them and purify us from all wrongdoing. Okay? Now, this offering is connected to the next offering, which is the asham, or guilt offering. A person guilty of any of these things is to confess in what matter and bring his guilt offering to Adonai for the sin he committed. It is to be a female from the flock, because we don't want to get rid of all the males. A lamb or a goat, okay? Now, this offering dealt with categories of non-intentional wrongdoing. If it involved wrongdoing another person, you had to make restitution. Then you could offer your gift. Didn't Jesus say that? Something just like that? If you guys are going to the temple and you're going to make your offering and you're not right with your brother, you need to go make it right with your brother, then bring your offering. That's right where He got this, right off of this offering. Okay? Okay, now, this offering as the guilt offering, you have to remember, you have what you are going to do because God is giving you a way to make up for what you've done. Okay? Sin offering. Now God is giving you a way to hopefully get rid of the guilt that you have because of it, the guilt offering. All right? But that leaves out a ginormous category of wrongdoing, which is rebellion, otherwise known as things that you do that you know that are wrong, but you do them anyway. Or things that you do not do that you know you ought to do, but you don't do them anyway. Okay? For those, there's no offering given. This is one of the places where our Christian theology has, I believe, missed an element of that matters. Okay, because they believe, well, Jesus is the sin offering, so that means it's all done. There's nothing more. You don't need to worry about it. It's done. Okay, no, don't think about it ever again. We never have to think about that again, right? But the only thing is, that offering, sin offering, didn't handle intentional rebellion. Was not anything that you could get at through these. If you are thinking of them as a category of crime, these will be like felonies. Okay, these are murder and adultery are examples of these, but not the only ones, because it could be anything. Okay, and there was this, the sacrifices did not cover this. In other words, all right. So then, what happens? What happens if you're a rebellious whatever, and you have done wrong, and you knew that you were doing wrong, and you know that if you bring one of these offerings, it's not going to matter because it was intentional. Has anybody ever done anything like that? I'm just wondering. Maybe, yeah. I don't know. Maybe Dave. Today? Yeah, I mean today. No? You're good today.
Oh, wait a minute.
That's exactly right? Okay. So here's the deal with this. This is what Yeshua meant when he mentioned the idea of enslavement to sin. Okay, it's like it and its consequences have you in their grip, and you can't get out of it. There's no way. Sacrifices won't do it. They don't get you out of it. All right. So how do you get out of it? Well, in Torah, what happens then is you're handed over to what is known as the curses of the law, which are consequences, with the ultimate one being what? Death. Okay? Now, what's amazing is that Yeshua's blood and his death and resurrection are the way out of that slavery, and he brings atonement for even rebellious sins. That's Passover and the Lamb. Okay? He brings all of that. Now, Paul wrote about this in Galatians. This is known as the curse of the law in Galatians, where you read that the Messiah redeemed us from the curse of the law. You guys have all heard that or read that? Maybe heard it in English. Christ has redeemed us from the curse of the law. Right? Okay. Now, the way that we normally have heard that is, see, the law is a what? Curse. Right? Okay. But now what we've learned is the curse or curses of the law were what happened when you weren't able to get out of your rebellion because you were in rebellion and there was no sacrifice that was offered, and therefore you're handed over to, and you can read about them in Deuteronomy 28, and the ultimate one was death. Okay? But now, Paul writes about Yeshua and what he did, that the Messiah has redeemed us from the curse. This is a different version. Pronounced in the Torah by becoming cursed on our behalf. For the Tanakh says, everyone who hangs from a tree or a stake comes under a curse. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that Jesus' death, Yeshua's death and resurrection was ultimately all about beating death. That's what it's about, okay? Bringing in him because he died and rose again, and now bringing in us the victory over that curse of the law, which is death. Right? Okay? You get it? That does not mean that the 10 Commandments are no longer valid, because it's been read that way, but that's not what that means. What it means is that, look, Yeshua died in order to deal with that rebellion and rose again in order to win over all of the power of the enemy, whatever it is, death, destruction, all of that. He's dealt with it, and he won. And we're on his team, meaning we win, which means death. So what? Right? Okay? Now, there's an aspect to this that's very important, that one is free from this curse of the law that is brought by intentional and rebellious sins only if you stop rebelling. Right? If you have to repent. You have to get out of that life, whatever it is. Once you get out of it, and the good news is, one of the main reasons that the Ruach, the Holy Spirit, is given to us is to help us get out of that. Okay, which Paul writes about in Romans. This is on your notes, last page 9. Therefore, there is no longer any condemnation awaiting those who are in union with the Messiah, Yeshua. Why? Because the Torah of the Spirit, which produces this life in union with Messiah, Yeshua, has set me free from the Torah of sin and death. Okay? Stop right there. Is that confusing? All right? The word Torah means instruction. Okay? Translate it that way in that verse. Okay? The instruction of the Spirit, which produces this life in union with Messiah, Yeshua, has set me free from the instruction of sin and death. Okay? For what the Torah could not do by itself, because it lacked the power to make the old nature cooperate, God did by sending his own Son as a human being with a nature like our own sinful one, but without sin. God did this in order to deal with sin, and in so doing, he executed the punishments against sin in human nature, so that the just requirement of the Torah might be fulfilled in us, who do not run our lives according to what our old nature wants, but according to what the Spirit wants. That's a lot of words. Paul's not an easy writer when he writes, okay? So the bottom line is, now that we are connected spiritually, we have been born again, born of the Spirit. We are connected with Yeshua. He gives us the Ruach, the Spirit, in order to help us walk out the ways of God in our lives. We don't have to do it alone. It isn't just by your own, guts that you're gonna make it work. Because I've tried that for many years, and you just lose your guts. You know what I mean? I'm like, well, that doesn't work very well. No, because you're not working in cooperation with the Ruach and the Holy Spirit in you. Okay. Last, we'll read Tom Bradford's words about this. Has anybody ever listened to him? Have you gotten on and listened to him yet? We went through a couple years where every time we went out in the woods camping, we listened to Bradford through the night. literally went to sleep, listen to Genesis 28, right? And wake up in the morning and he's on Genesis 48. Okay? He just has a way of going through everything I just love him. I love his teaching and the way he teaches, and he still is today. You can find him online, okay? And the address is under the bibliography. Okay, he says this, because not one person has ever gone his lifetime without sinning, that by God's grace there is now a method by which all those sins can be atoned for. To Paul, it was obvious that Messiah did something more than what the Levitical sacrificial system was capable of doing. And what Christ could do was atone for the intentional sins in our lives as well as the unintentional. When Yeshua died on the cross, at least two things were accomplished that directly affect us. One, he paid the price with his blood for our sins. He atoned for them, the intentional and unintentional. Two, as the Passover lamb, his blood marked us to be passed over for the eternal death, spiritual death, which the Bible describes as, first and foremost, eternal separation from God. In other words, death no more. I heard an old story. You guys know that one? How a Savior came from glory. How he gave his life on Calvary to save a wretch like me. I heard about his healing, of his cleansing power revealing, and some sweet day I'll sing up there the song of victory. Here we go. Oh, victory in Jesus, my Savior forever. He bought me and taught me with his redeeming blood. He loved me ere I knew him, and all my love is to him. He plunged me to victory beneath a cleansing flood. Second verse. No, I'm just kidding. Don't know if I remember that one, but
I heard about his groaning.
yeah, I heard about his groaning of his yeah. Going back now. Holy hymnal. But that's it, right? That's it. So it's all related, you know? I don't know how anybody can read the book of Hebrews and have a clue what it means without knowing Torah and knowing Leviticus and Deuteronomy. It just, there's no way.
It's okay.
David.
I don't know how anybody could read the book of Hebrews and know Torah.
Yeah, it's not easy. It is not easy. Yeah. James.
I think you're tiptoeing around a lot of the other teachings of those who follow what we all do. Kind of take away quite a lot, actually, from Skip Moen's book, Crosswords book. I just think,
What do you mean?
Well, for one, I think that there's a lot of emphasis on his actions of the cross being sin, forgiveness, and atonement. It's still not tying in the actions revealed to us in Revelation 13, 1 Peter, and Ephesians, also written by Paul,
Yeah.
about him being sacrificed for the foundation of the world.
Yes, well, I can do that, and it's good because we're not done yet. We have a couple more minutes.
Not that I completely worship Skip Moe. I don't want to.
No. But you're right. It's another level. It's another level of looking at it, okay? One of the things he brings up in one of his books is that Yeshua, the Lamb, was slain before the foundations of the world, okay? So, well, that's in the Bible more than once. The Lamb was slain before the world was made. Okay, so then what happened on the cross, and what Kip Moen does in his book is he gets into all the meaning of the victory over death, which is right, okay? But he mentions just a little, kind of like a little drop in the book, and I'm like, yeah, I know what he was doing. He was trying to get us to look at the major victory that was won over death, rather than only thinking that Jesus died to bring us forgiveness. The cross was at the cross, he manifested something that had already been done in the heavens. Because the Lamb gave his life before the foundations of the world. The cross was like, guys, this is what happened in heaven. Okay, now I'm doing this on earth. That forgiveness was always available to anyone who turned away from their rebellion. Okay, I can give you an example in the Bible. You can give me an example. Someone in the Bible who rebelled. He knew it was wrong and he did it anyway, and yet he was David, forgiven. He was forgiven, David. Okay?
So you're saying that, I think you're saying, that it had already happened, so yes, it was the type and shadow of what had already happened.
Yes. Yep. You can put it that way. That works. Yes.
It's one of those repeats.
Yes, it's one of those repeat, but it began before the foundation of the world. Okay? And all of that lets me know that God is not in his quest for us and relationship for us. He's not going, oh, gee, what am I going to do now? At all. He knew from the very beginning that this was going to be needed for us. He was going to make a way so that we might have free will, so that he might have beings that choose to love him and be in relationship with him.
Which I'll add to what you made clear to me in going along with what we said is, if he simply wrote it his word, because I know your name in front of me, where it's written, Ephesians, 1 Peter, Revelation 13.
Truly. No. Julie, right? Julia.
So all if he just said yes, but if he just said the Messiah rose again from the dead, that's great. There's a lot of stuff written in here. But he brought about through his sacrifice before the foundations of the heavenly altar the way for us to find a way out of guilt and to find forgiveness for our actions. But to be able to conquer death, you had to actually have people see him do that and be able to witness that to believe it. Or you're going to live a life
Right.
fearful of death and what happens when you in flatline.
Right.
And there he was. The Messiah was on the cross in front of him, and also witnessed to many after that his death. He was pronounced dead, everything that could be determined. His wife was in the grave for 3 days. Think of Lazarus, right?
Yep.
You're not dead till after the third day. He did everything to prove he was dead. And then he rose and lived and showed himself alive. And you can do the same. Follow me.
Yes. Isn't that? Yeah. It's a good book. I think maybe his best that Skip wrote. What's the name of it? Crossword Puzzles. David.
I do believe that Skip, more than anybody I've ever met, really likes to poke the bear. Even if it's going to slash him.
Even more than you.
Yeah, way more than me.
Yeah.
Way more.
Boom. Yes.
Okay, much lighter question.
Lighter.
Lighter question. So when we're talking about the 5 sacrifices tonight,
Yes.
the first 3 were you said that they were to draw near to the Lord.
Well, they're all to draw near. Yes.
Well, I mean, but some of them are, actually atonement for sin or whatever. But I never quite thought of that, I guess, in the Hebrew terms. But how does fasting fit into this rotation?
It doesn't. Well, it really doesn't into this. What we learned tonight, there is a place for that in the development of their worship of God and their life with God. There are not many places in the Bible where you are commanded to do it. It's almost like assumed that you're going to do that. Isn't that
Wasn't there
interesting?
I can't think of specific examples in the Old Testament where they did, well, Esther, for example, they fasted for 3 days.
Yes.
I guess I'm not clear if that was for clarity or favor or whatever, but I always think of it like now as that's something that we use to draw near to God instead of, these offerings, however many times a day when we want to draw near. But did they think of fasting differently than these offerings?
I think it was more, it had more dimensions than that. It had that dimension, and then it had another dimension. Okay? One dimension of it is when you do that, you learn who God is and that you're not. Neither is what you eat or whatever it is that you're giving up, right? Because it is a giving up something. So in that way, it's like an offering, because you're offering up your meal to God so that He can be more intimate. So that's an element of it. Another element of it is break your dependence on the world. Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes out of the mouth of God. Yeshua was fasting. He wasn't eating, right? So what I get out of looking at this in the Tanakh is that it was something that they did, something that was available and allowable, something that sometimes they were instructed to do it in certain situations, but it was never like one of these, and it was never like a commandment, like a mitzvah. Okay, but it was something. Jesus did it, right? So if it's good enough for him, then maybe we should think about doing it. I know one person who did it that many days, 40 days. But I don't know many people that have done it for 40 days. Doing it for one day is hard enough for some of us. Fasting, huh? Nope. I can't divulge that. Okay.
How did it feel afterwards?
Lighter. A lot lighter, and had revelation during those days. And I mean, lately we're learning the value of it on your body. Fasting has great health value unless you have certain diseases, and then you got to watch it. You got to just, watch it, because it might send you into somewhere you don't want to be. What?
Were his initials John Matthews?
Who else? You had your hand up. Julia, go ahead.
I've recently been kind of researching what
Uh-huh.
and wondering
What mitzvahs are.
is that something we do here?
Yes. A mitzvah is a commandment that you can do. And when you do it, the idea is it's a way that you love God by doing a mitzvah. Now, originally, the word means commandment. So originally, any commandment of God was viewed as a mitzvah. Today in Judaism, a mitzvah is usually a work that you do on behalf of somebody else. Okay? Okay, I did one today. I'm not doing that. I'm only doing this because I know all of you have done this, and to let you know it's a mitzvah to do this, okay? I happened to be in Fred Meyer today, and I ran into an old friend of ours, Nancy. Remember Nancy Smith? I ran into her, and we were standing there, talking, and this little lady comes up to us. She looked awful. She looked emaciated and elderly, and she just looked awful, and she had a couple things in her hand, and she walked up to us and said, "Do you think that you could help me buy these?" Okay, and both of us got in our wallet and got enough money and gave it to her and said, "Yeah, go," and she, okay, now because I let you know, I get 0 credit for that in the bank, okay? But that's a mitzvah, okay? So as you're doing something like that, you can literally be thinking in your mind, I am loving God by doing this. It's a way to love God. So, and the more ways that you find out that there are to love God, wow, the greater, the more the relationship explodes. Patty, was that your hand?
Okay, I want to go all the way back to the very beginning of
Okay, back to the beginning.
the first portion,
Okay,
and it's in reference to the ones that were building the pieces for the tabernacle.
okay,
Okay, and there's the word work is in those two verses,
work.
verse 39, 42, and 43.
Yes,
Okay,
avodah.
they're two different words.
What's the other word?
The first one is avodah,
Uh-huh.
and the second one is melachah.
Ah, melech. Ah,
So,
okay,
avodah means to do something as a service,
right.
worship.
Right, avodah is like an act of worship in your work.
And the second one, melachah, means to use the skills and the work that you can do and do it in excellence.
Yes, okay. And create something is related to that word.
Okay, now move into the portion of the offerings that we were discussing
Uh-huh.
tonight.
Yes,
Those first three seem to me to be acts of worship.
yes,
And then the last two, where you're repenting for sins and accepting his atonement, those, you can do those with excellence,
right,
a pure heart, with a filtered heart.
yes,
Which leads me then to think about the liver and the kidney and the heart and all the filtering, because the heart is the mind,
right.
the lab. I'm just flabbergasted.
It's amazing, isn't it?
This is going together.
Yeah. God, people, there's no way people made this up. There's too much just wow in it for them to make it up. Something else about those words, avodah, which is translated here as work, is not forbidden on Shabbat, only melechah. Okay, melechah is creating, making something. Because on the seventh day, God rested from making things. Okay, that's another reason why you're not supposed to kindle fire, because it's seen as creating something. Okay, well, what about mowing my lawn? Can I mow my lawn as an act of worship to God? I do. I mow my lawn as an act of worship to God, and I'm not, well, maybe I am creating a nice looking lawn. But anyway, the idea, like I remember watching that movie, The Way. I don't know if anybody ever watched The Way documentary, not the one with the guys walking in Europe, but the one about people like us who are learning all this stuff. And in it, there's one guy, he was a reformed no, it was somebody in his congregation. A couple of brothers, I think they were black brothers. And the one guy, he goes, I just started reading my Bible, and I thought, I want to just rest on Saturday, but I don't know what to do. He said, do you remember those days? To his brother. And he goes, yeah, we would just wake up and just sit there in bed all day. And he was like, is this what we're supposed to do on Shabbat? Just wake up and sit there in bed all day? And it was like, hey, you're moving in the right direction, okay? Maybe certain Shabbats you might want to do that. It'd be nice if somebody brought you breakfast in bed, unless you're fasting. You teach a class on staying in bed all day. All right, well,
But cooking is creating something so you'd have to make.
yeah, can be. Okay, unless you already have it all made and you mix it together. That might be creating, or it might not. Maybe, maybe not. You have to ask. Huh?
Just don't keep no fire.
Right, have it already made. Do you know? Hey, listen, in Israel on Shabbat, do you guys know about the elevators?
Yes.
Uh-huh. Yep. Okay. So, you know, I don't want to judge anybody else and what they're doing or how they're doing it or how they're keeping it. I just pray that everybody's moving in the right direction with what that is and what that means, you know.
Pushing that button.
And nothing happened. You got to walk. Yeah, but that doesn't work. Walking's not work, but pushing the button on the elevator is. Oy vey. All right, guys. Good night. I'm going to read you these last words that I wrote here because it's the words of a blessing. May you draw near to Yehovah your God through Yeshua. May you know his forgiveness and cleansing. May you be filled with his power through his Holy Spirit to live in his ways. And may you be holy as he is holy. Amen. Amen. Good night, beloved online Zoomers.